Two patients walk into two different chiropractic offices. One gets a technically perfect adjustment and never comes back. The other, same condition, same type of care, but they actually feel seen and they feel understood. They book their next visit before they've even left, and they refer their spouse that night. So what happened? What was actually different? On this episode of Chiropractical, we're talking about what patients expect today and why the difference between a one-time visit and a lifelong patient often has nothing to do with the adjustment itself. Welcome to Chiropractical. I'm your host, Jon Kec. Today's conversation is one every chiropractor needs to hear because whether you realize it or not, patient expectations have completely changed. We're diving into what patients expect now and how chiropractors can rise to meet that moment. It's not just about getting adjusted anymore. It's about the entire experience, from the first phone call to the front desk, to how you communicate care plans, to what happens after they've left your office. Joining me today is someone who truly understands the patient experience at a deep level, Dr. Lisa Goodman. Dr. Goodman was named the 2025 Women in Leadership Chiropractor of the Year, is the author of the Manual for the Chiropractic Entrepreneur, and the founder of Practice Fox, an educational platform for early career chiropractors. Dr. Goodman, thanks for joining us again here on Chiropractical.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk today because, what we're going to dive into, I think I forget how often it plays into the rest of our real life, not to sidetrack us too much, but moving right now and going through, all the stuff that goes into moving and talking to all these companies to do all these things. And it's amazing how different one company to the next and the experience is and how quickly you turn off from that company because it was not a good first phone call.
Correct.
That first impression is so unbelievably powerful.
Yeah, correct. With literally everything, everything in life, that first impression's everything.
Yeah. And I think we forget about it because as practitioners, that is, because it's not the first impression, so to say, for us, right? We've had 5 patients before this person. It's the middle of our day, whatever it is, but it's still their first time in the office, or maybe their first time in 6 months or whatever it's been, right? So you lose sight of that and very quickly pay for it if you're not doing things the right way, at least, let's say.
Yeah, no, there's so many things we do every day that we don't even think about. I mean, even down to an adjustment, even down to just walking through our own routine, and at a patient who maybe it's only their second visit deserves a little bit more attention than just you do this all day, every day, but they're not used to it. And so we do sort of have to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe a good place for us to start then is I think we've got some listeners that are probably in school, about to come out, just got out, but we've also got some people that are 10, 12, 20 years in practice. So when we start talking about that experience and the way the world's changed over the last 5 to 10 years with COVID and all the things that brought us and the emerging technologies and all that stuff, what's really changed in the patient experience and patient expectations in that time that people need to be aware of on that first visit?
Yeah, so patients are their own advocates now, and they are doing a lot of research before they come in, not just on their condition or what they think is going on, but they already have an expectation of how many times they want to come in, how long the appointment should be, how much you should charge. I think the biggest thing we need as practitioners to respect is that our patients are really intelligent people who already come in with a pretty solid base of knowledge that could be correct or incorrect, but I find more often than not, they know what they want when they show up at your office.
And they're willing to stand in those convictions, even if they may not be fully correct, because they've devoted that time, they've done that research, and I think we have to respect that and ask those questions.
I think it's helpful when a patient comes in and says, I have plantar fasciitis and I want you to do this. I don't do what they say, and I confirm the diagnosis, but that gives me a lot of information as far as what they think is going on and how they want to solve it. I mean, I just think that in general, we no longer control the entire experience because we need to ask them what they think is going to happen, in a sense. What have you seen on TikTok? What do you think an adjustment looks like? What are you expecting today? Those are questions we probably didn't have to ask a long time ago.
Well, and I think, back to the first impression idea, right? We only get that one chance to make the first impression. And they have, like you said, that expectation clearly laid out. We could do exactly what we thought was perfect, right? The textbook encounter, so to say. and it was 180 degrees from what they thought it was going to be, and we'll never see that patient again. They could have been well in 3 visits and they're never coming back.
Well, that's the other part, is that every single patient actually needs a different approach from
Sure.
your front desk and from you as the clinician. So you have to be able, I think it's like more important now to be able to read the room or read the patient as you're creating a treatment plan or as you're communicating finances. It can't necessarily be scripted anymore.
So let's kind of talk about how we go about customizing that encounter. What are the questions that you would recommend people ask to really clearly understand what this patient is looking for?
Well, like I said, find out their prior experience with chiropractic or with social media or with, you know what, AI. A lot of it is now coming from
Yeah.
AI, right? So what are you hearing? What are you finding out? What are your expectations? I feel like I would start with that. And then, this is not to say I'm throwing out the patient experience, because it's so important that we do have a standard and that we walk in our patient's shoes from the
Sure.
moment that they search for a chiropractor online and see your Google profile, all the way to when they, come into your office and you ask them, make sure they found parking okay. So it's sort of like along all those steps, are we checking in that we've paid attention to them? A good example would be like online booking, which is huge and really helpful for a lot. I mean, you can book a new patient appointment at 3 a.m. Great. So what you need to do, though, is your staff needs to follow that online booking appointment up with real communication, right? So it's not like,
Sure.
oh, they booked online, they'll show up. Now we can email or text them and say, or call, hey, we noticed you booked online. We're going to be sending you some forms and you should know this about parking and we're excited to have you. Because like you said about the moving company, you could fill out a form online and they could, reply back, but it would be kind of nice that maybe for the ones that called you and actually said, oh, tell me a little bit more detail.
Sure.
That sticks with you more. So I think as automated as everything's becoming, my office is actually going back to the basic things. I'm going to bring this completely full circle now to like, what do we need to pay attention to patients now? But, back in the day, we would call a patient after their first visit and check on them. And I don't think people are doing that anymore. So
Not many.
I think it's like those touches that felt like a small town practice, family practice, those are the touches that will keep a patient loyal to you and referring to you and coming back to you. So there's a lot going on with automation. But to answer your question, I think that it's making sure that even when things are automated, that we're checking with each individual patient that they got what they wanted out of that communication.
So if I'm hearing correctly, don't assume, confirm, right?
I love
Don't
that.
just assume that it was the right experience because it's worked for the last 5 years or whatever. Confirm it was right for that patient.
Yes. Yeah.
So what would you say to the doctor who says, I don't have time for that. I'm busy. I don't have time to make that phone call. I don't have time to send that email, whatever it is.
Okay, so this is where scaling comes into play. If you don't have time to do that because your practice is running really smoothly and you're really busy, you maybe don't have to go to that extent, I would say. You're doing it right. Your patients feel taken care of. Great. But you're going to do it in the check-in and check-out process. You're going to check in with them as they're coming in. Your front desk is going to ask them has room to ask them how their day is, or has room to compliment, a new jacket they're wearing, or, those things should never go away when we're in person, when they're in front of us. So I would just say that this probably applies a lot more to a practice that's trying to establish itself and trying to stop losing patients to turnover. Like, check and see where along the way here we're failing to communicate with our patients.
So what about, I don't want to pick on my mom here, but I think of my mom and her experience with providers, right? Whatever they may be, not chiropractic, non-chiropractic. She's very much of the generation where it's just like the doctor is always right. What the doctor did was the right thing. I don't ask questions. I just do what I'm told to do. Are patients today predominantly still like that? Or are we looking at because they're so educated and have so many more options, it's a whole different dynamic for people now?
I think somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
However, I'm going to say that providers are not doing what they used to do that way. So we are failing to tell our patients what we want them to do and what we need them to do. I think more patients are leaving confused about when they're supposed to come back, or confused about what the purpose of the treatment was, or confused about what the long-term goal is. And so, because you'll see patients asking for that, like, when do you want me to come back? And when am I, why are we doing this? So I think patients project like they're independent and they have autonomy, but they want to be told exactly what their next step is. And I think that we get a little bit afraid when they come in with Google told me this and AI told me this, and we get nervous to tell them what we think they should do. So I think it's actually somewhere in the middle, but I would summarize by saying people overwhelmingly still want to be told. We are so busy in our daily lives. We can't possibly try to synthesize what we're supposed to do next with a chiropractic appointment. But if our doctor tells us, I want to see you on Friday, and then we're going to try to do one more next week, and this is our goal, okay, I'll do that. Like, thank you.
Yeah. So in a perfect world, we're setting reasonable expectations. We're asking questions, right? We're checking in with that patient along the way. And this is in the single encounter, let's just say, to make sure that we're all on the same page, right? We are giving out clear and direct plans. So all these things have set us up for success. When that doesn't happen, I guess I should say, how many chances do you think the average patient is giving you anymore if you miss the mark on one and then all of those things?
Well, that's the other issue, is that access is really easy to good chiropractors. Not trying to say that's an issue, but if somebody's unhappy with their, it's good. We want more of us. If somebody's unhappy with an experience, they really do have options. So I think we have to do the right thing by our patients, and we have to communicate with them, and we do have to do the work to keep them. It's not the default of like, well, this is the only person around, so I guess I'll suffer with poor communication or care. They definitely have options to move on. So I think it can come down to the first visit. It can come down to one visit down the road that doesn't go well. And I really think it can come down to staff and communication from your front desk and your office staff, for sure. If they have a bad experience with that, they may love your care, but they don't want to have an interaction with scheduling or an insurance. Oh my gosh, a billing mistake, an insurance mistake. I would probably guess that that's the number one reason people actively leave a practice.
Sure.
I think the number one reason people drop off care is because we do our job so well. I speak to a lot of chiropractic students, every week or two, and I ask them, how are you going to convert a patient from active care to lifestyle care, wellness care, or, why are they going to keep coming back? And the students overwhelmingly are like, if I provide good care and solve their problem, if I'm a good chiropractor, if I, help them. And I'm like, I'm hoping all of you are going to do that. That's not what keeps people coming back. They'll drop off care at, I think a strong average is 4 to 7 visits because you solve their problem. So that's actually a whole nother ball of wax. Like, how do we get people to not drop off care and still get them better quickly?
Yeah. I want to talk about that, but I want to go somewhere else first because I'm going to forget it if we don't. You mentioned staff and other non-treatment based stuff. What suggestions would you give for people to ensure that the staff they bring in are going to meet the expectations you as a provider actually have? Because same conversations before. I'm too busy to make that phone call. Well, the they've got life going on too. They've got, kids and bills and all this other stuff that's going to get into their head during the day. How do you do your best to screen and vet people to make sure they're going to deliver that kind of care to your patient?
Right. So there's always like the decision of, do I hire somebody who has a lot of experience in this role, or do I hire somebody who has like a great personality? One of the women who works for me at my front desk, she was a server at a brewery nearby a couple of months ago when I was there, and she was just like the best server I ever had. And I was like, you need to come work for me. And she does.
Awesome.
But she had no experience with chiropractic necessarily, or running a healthcare office. So that's, first of all, one decision is like, I would rather hire for personality and someone who's going to drive the patient experience the right direction and train on the business. You can potentially find somebody who's good at both, by the way. But it's harder to train personality. But no matter who you hire, no matter how good your onboarding is, which, by the way, everybody needs good onboarding. We do a weekly meeting with our front desk where we do like 45 minutes every week, and we just have a different topic that we role play and we go through, and it's almost just like ongoing training. And it can be people who've been there for a year, 2 years. Every week we just have a little ongoing training, and we'll talk about cases that didn't go how we wanted them to. During, the last week, we'll talk about new questions that came up. So I think the key to well-trained staff without a script is ongoing training. It's like, we're going to onboard them they're going to job shadow for a week, and then they're going to be on their own, and then here's the manual and look it all up. Like, I think it's just nice to continuously have those conversations.
So kind of the same as the patient experience, right? Set expectations, ask questions, check in, right? Do that same thing with your staff.
Yeah, and your staff can't all be trained exactly the same way. They all have different ways of processing information and goals and hours that they work. Somebody who works 40 hours a week is going to catch on much quicker than somebody who works 12 hours a week. And that person that works 12 hours a week, they really need the reminder and the training, because they're not going to encounter every situation and every patient. So, yeah, I think that, and we treat our staff really well. I think it's really fun to treat your staff well. We buy them lunch, but we have like a whole spreadsheet of our staff's favorite things. And so when it's like their birthday or whatever, we can like reference that. I think that culture, it mirrors, to your point, the patient experience. I want the staff experience to be like they could not possibly want to work somewhere else, Yeah.
Excited to come in every day. That translates to how they actually interact with the patients.
Correct. Yeah. Imagine telling them that they need to make somebody's day better, but they come in and they don't like where they work. It's like, it's not really going to work.
Just doesn't line up very well.
No.
Okay. All right, let's go back then. So this isn't necessarily where I thought we were going to go when we started this conversation, but I love that it got here. So we started talking about, how do you get patients to come back for the second visit, right? How do you set that clear stage from the first impression to make them come back? But then we talk about, ideally, they're better in 4 to 7 visits. So how do you then pivot and actually make them want to be long-term wellness style patients?
Right. And so some people don't. I'll address that too. Students will say to me that they want a treat and release culture in their practice. Like, you come in with a problem and I'd solve it and you leave. From a business standpoint, it's a much better business model to have consistent patients. From a patient relationship standpoint, or catching problematic health issues, we're one of the only professions that might have our eyes on our patients regularly throughout the year. And we can catch all kinds of things when we notice a patient's been losing weight, or they're jaundiced, or they have something going on that's new, and we're going to maybe delay seeing another healthcare provider. So there's a lot of value in wellness care from a business standpoint and from a patient health standpoint. But really, from a chiropractic standpoint, and like what it really does to you and your body and your health over the course of a year, if you were to get adjusted once a month over the course of a year, I mean, you're just going to be in a completely different place, I think, a year from now. So part of it is
Absolutely.
like talking to patients about that. I have this sort of actually I have shelves behind me, so this works perfectly, but I have shelves in my office too. I tell patients that most of the time baseline is like here for them, and they always
Okay.
come into your office when they drop below. That's just why they come in. They have pain. They don't
Yeah.
feel good. Well, their thought is to get back to baseline. And what I like to show them with my shelves is like, what if this was where we could get you, right? To the next shelf or the next
Yeah.
shelf. Like you didn't even know
Absolutely.
that was
This is possible.
possible because you're used
Yeah.
to living here. That general concept works. The funny thing is it's not one conversation. It's like every time they come in, you're finding a little bit of a way to fold in their life and their goals into the future of treatment. Um,
Okay.
we have used, I'm trying to remember this really good example. Okay, we have used dentistry and car mechanic like all the time. We're the maintenance, we're the body maintenance people. For your car, you go to a mechanic. For a dentist, you need your teeth cleaned and then you brush them in between or whatever. But I recently heard another new one that was really great, which is when it comes to tax season, I hire a CPA to do my taxes because they know so much more about it than I do. And I trust them to do it and to save me money and get me a return, whatever the case. Like there are areas of my life where I cannot solve a problem myself, and experts, if I need a lawyer, like they know it so much better and I have no problem
Yep.
hiring them. Well, that's who we are for your health and your body, right? So let me be the expert and let me take care of you and tell you how you can then set yourself up in between visits to like my CPA is going to set me up. Okay, Lisa, this is how you need to get organized for next year so that when I see you again, everything goes smoother, right? There's a teamwork approach and there's still it's still on me to be prepared. So with the chiropractic, it's like, I'm not suggesting you come in once a month and I just solve all your problems, but through this relationship, we're going to be able to talk about so many things you have going on, from fitness to nutrition to body aches and pains. And most people, this is very long-winded, but most people come in for a specific complaint. And when
Mhm.
I get a chance to see you more than that complaint's worth of time, you start telling me about a chronic injury that you never thought could get better, or you start telling me about something that you didn't think was in my wheelhouse. And we start really peeling the layers off your overall health. So that's obviously a fundamental belief for me. And it's just a matter of making sure your patients understand and know that. But it's like a lot of conversation with patients and asking them if that's what they want. Again, right back to your first question, how are patients different now and how can we individualize care? Is that what you want? Do you want to come in and I just solve this problem, or do you want to come in and find out how I can help you with lots of other things?
It's an ongoing process, right? So not really a whole lot different on experience one or encounter day one, that is, than it is on encounter day 7, 10, 20, if they do become long-term patients. That's still clear communication, check-ins, ask those questions, make sure everybody's on the same page, get buy-in.
I love the get buy-in, right? Do you want to see what else I can do to help you if we were to stick together for like a year? I
Yeah.
mean, what's the answer going to be? No, I'm really not interested in that. Okay, that's
I'm all
fine. Like
set.
actually people will be like, I can't afford it or I don't have time,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But I like that even just asking the question logs it in their head that that's an option. Oh, let's talk about the fact that if you don't tell somebody that's an option, they don't know it's an option.
Yeah.
Don't assume a patient knows they're supposed to come in regularly. And don't assume because you went over that on visit 1 that they remember it on visit 6. Um, we, I was thinking ahead about this, like things that don't work anymore in chiropractic and things that we need to transition out of. In our profession, a lot of people argue about big care plans, right? We go back and forth with should we do a 36 visit or an unlimited for a year and it's like $6,000? Or should we be doing 6 visit packages or visit to visit or whatever? So I think the answer is sort of somewhere in the middle because we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot with a 6 visit package because that's exactly when they're going to feel
They
better.
drop off.
And they drop
Yep.
off. They're like, oh, wow, that worked out. So I really like to extend to like a 12 visit or 18 where I'm like, hey, depending on what you have going on, I think I'm going to be able to solve your problem in like 5 or 6 visits. But in our office, we really like to make sure that, so 5 or 6 visits in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then give me 5 or 6 more visits in 2 months or 3 months. And so we get to actually see the trajectory once you're sort of back into your normal activities. And most people love that. Like, okay, I can do that. That gives them enough time to see them move from this shelf to this shelf too. So and that gives you a lot of extra time to uncover the chronic issue or the new thing they didn't tell you about before. And then you develop, see, the whole thing is about developing a relationship with the patient. And it's hard to develop a relationship in 2 or 3 visits. It's easier to develop a relationship in 10 or 12 visits.
Oh, absolutely. And it gives, like you said, it gives that chance for other things to come out, conversations that nobody expected to have on day 1 happen on day 30, right? Which then lends itself to the next problem or the next thing they would prefer to optimize. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. I just think a lot of students and newer doctors or even younger doctors don't really recognize that once a problem is solved, there's always other things to work on. I think we can get, because, people who haven't had a lot of pain or injury don't really know what it's like to have stuff going on all the time. And so I do think confidence is like a key thing that we need. And this is one of the reasons I love talking to students, because confidence in if you're convicted in chiropractic care and being ongoing, you just need to talk about it more. You just need to say it. Like our patients don't know it's an option if we don't talk about it. And they don't know how important it is if we don't sound convicted about it. So, I mean, do you think any of my patients, when I'm like, hey, this is what's going to work best for you, do you think they're questioning me? Like, I'm just like, I believe in it so strongly and I know it's good for them. It's just, I think we get afraid of over treating or overselling, and it's just educating. Our goal is just simply to educate our patients.
Well, and I think that's a matter of perspective and delivery, right? There's a difference between the end result may not be different, but there's a difference in the approach of education versus selling or convincing, right? And I think you've got to learn how to walk that line. And if your intent is to educate, I think you can be extremely powerful. If your intent is to convince and sell, I think people feel that really quickly because they know you may or may not believe in it, but it doesn't have that same impact because there's another motive involved, right? And it's okay to have that, but.
Well, plus part of the reason that it's really hard for doctors to talk to patients about continuing care is because they're afraid of being told no, or they're afraid of the rejection from the patient, which is a really human fear. Putting yourself out there and saying, hey, I believe you need this, and having somebody say, thanks, but no thanks, or say, oh, okay, thanks, but then walk out without scheduling. And you feel like this rejection. And the best thing any of us can do is realize that if our goal is to educate, we've done our job, and now it's the patient's job to take the information and do what they will with it. If our goal is to convince, then we get angry when they say no, because we think like the motivation is different, So I just like wipe that away. Who cares? If you've educated the patient and you've told them what they need and they don't do what you've said necessarily, there are things we do after the fact if somebody doesn't schedule or doesn't rebook. Just a couple more attempts at making sure they know that you're there. But like if you do it coming from a good place, they're intelligent human beings. They can make decisions for themselves.
What would you say to the doctor, though, that in that situation, they are so passionate about helping their patients, they are so driven to educate on the benefit of chiropractic care, that they still do take it personally when somebody doesn't see that same vision. They're not trying to sell. They're not trying to convince. It is a truly altruistic attempt, but it just eats at their soul.
Well, you just have to be so happy about the people that did listen to you and the lives you are changing. Because if you can help and change one life today, I mean, your purpose has been fulfilled, So I think it's just
Absolutely.
It's just making sure that you're not defining yourself by 100, a batting average of what, 1,000, batting 1,000.
Yeah.
I really said that kind of funny, but it's like Major League Baseball hitters with a 300 batting average is like MVPs, So if we can get 30% of our patients to understand the value of what we're doing pretty well,
Yeah,
we
for
want
sure.
all of them for sure, but like
Of
I
course.
said, they have choices too. They have other places they can spend their money and assume that they're going to get better or equal care.
So we've talked about, I think, a lot of conversational stuff today. Let's try to summarize or narrow it down a little bit. So when we start talking about the patient encounter and the patient experience, setting that expectation from the beginning, best first impression, give me 3 to 5 things you would say to a new doctor, a veteran doctor. This is what has to happen to set you up for success.
Okay, you have to have really good response time to communication. So if a patient is calling, you have to answer the phone, or if they're texting, you have to respond right away, or emailing. So number one, like, people want you to respond very quickly.
Okay.
And we're talking like making the patient feel welcome in your office is basically what we're talking about, right? And making them want to come back.
Exactly. More
Okay.
that. Yeah. Making them come back for that second visit. How do you set yourself up for success?
I mean, so first of all, you have the day zero thing where like they haven't even come in yet. So you want them to feel the warmth of your culture from your website, your social media, and your communication responsiveness. Then you have I'm making an appointment. So you have to make sure that if they've made it online, that you're following that up with a real human communication, which we already talked about.
Okay.
Then once they show up at your office, you have to make it very seamless and easy for them to park. And it's all about removing barriers to entry up until they come into your office. And when they come and they parked, they know where they're going. The signage is easy. The sidewalk is shoveled. Things like that make a big difference. And then when they show up, they need to be greeted immediately. There is probably nothing worse in a healthcare office than going into an office and not knowing if anyone knows you're there or checked in.
Yeah.
Or
Been there.
I mean, I've been there, and I was there 2 days ago. I walked into an appointment and the person was on the phone legitimately, but he could have looked up and he could have just let me know he saw
acknowledged.
me. It's so
Yep.
funny, like that we think that if we're on the phone, it's obvious that we see them, but like you just want somebody to look up and be like, "Oh, I got you," whatever. So one, like, acknowledge your patient immediately, but on that second, tell the patient what to expect. Oh, hey, we've got you all checked in for your appointment, and I want to let you know doctor's running on time today, so it should be, well, don't say on time. I guess that would make it sound like it's unusual. But doctor will be out in like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. But if the doctor's running late, tell me. Like, say, hey, doctor's running a little late today. Are you okay on time? That's one of my favorite tips, because if the patient's like, actually, I'm not that great on time, I have to pick my kids up, then we have some choices. We can knock on the door and actually let the doctor know, like, your next patient can't wait. Like, can you speed this up? Or we can, unfortunately, let the patient reschedule. But at least that saved me a ton than just waiting there wondering. Those are the things, like, when you're waiting to know if you're acknowledged, when you're waiting to know when your appointment's actually going to start. And those are just like the simplest things that we can do. And the same thing as when they come out from their appointment is acknowledging that you see them ready to check out and acknowledging their appointment. Like, hey, how was your session today? How was your visit today? Like, bring your front desk sort of in full circle to the appointment. Let the
Okay.
patient know that they have a place if they want to say something. Like, if you have a bunch of doctors and a patient didn't prefer the one they saw today, you're opening that up right away to say, hey, how was your visit today? It was good. I'm so glad you guys got me in, but like, I don't know. I wish I really prefer the other doctor or whatever. It's like in a good office, that kind of transparency is great. Like
Yeah.
we don't need to hide that or like pretend that's not. That could be a reason a patient dropped off from care. They just didn't vibe with the doctor. So
Yeah.
those are like a lot of the things that I think create a difference. And like you said, the doctor's like, I'm too busy to create individualized experiences, but this stuff's behavioral.
Yeah. And it's not even really, I don't think there's a big time investment there, right? It's not that you're not crafting the individual experience. You're asking a question and allowing the patient to guide you where they need to go, really.
Exactly. And, when you're rebooking, it's like, oh, today's Wednesday and he wants to see you in a week. So how's next Wednesday at the same time? This is like basics, but sometimes people don't recognize this. I like to take the patient out of the room and hand them off to the front desk so maybe even in the room I've said, let's do next week. But then I come out and I tell the front desk assistant, I want to do next week. The patient hears me say that. That creates like a more certainty about, oh, we're as a team doing next week. Then I walk away. Then the staff is like looking at that date and time and just making the assumption at that point, that's where we're going to put you.
Same.
And it's just like, it's so, it really, this is maybe like a great final thought type thing. It's really about like, at the end of the day, every decision you make for patient care and communication should be about making the patient's life easier and better. So when I look at it as selling, like I have to sell them on this package or I have to sell them on another visit, that's not coming from a perspective of, am I making this patient's life easier or better? That's for me. But if I'm like, hey, I know that booking them at the same time next week will help them with their health, will help them with their calendar, will help them with or selling them a package will help them with their finances and maintaining their consistency of care. That's just like, oh, I mean, patients see that and they get why you're doing it. They're like, oh, this was really helpful. Thank you so much. Or if you're referring them to another provider in your office and you're doing it from the perspective of like, hey, I think this person's a better fit for you, or sending them even out of your office to PT. If you do things that help your patients, that reflects positively on you and your brand.
Absolutely. Doing what's best for the patient. It's so powerful and so simple, right? You have a business to run, yes, but we did this to start. We started doing this, became chiropractors to help people. Don't lose sight of that, even at the expense of maybe losing a patient because you're not the right fit.
Yeah, completely. And I think that you'll get patients who drop off from care and refer you 3 more patients.
Yeah.
If you do it.
Because you did the right thing.
Because you did the right thing. And doing what's best for the patient, I think a lot of times we just limit that to clinically treatment. What's evidence-informed care? Are we doing what's best for the patient? But I think anymore in a community-based business with more competition out there, it's honestly about the whole experience. Did the patient was this the best place they came today? Like, was this their most fun outing, their most exciting visit? I mean, how many patients tell me this is like the best part of their month coming in to see us? Like, that's what you want,
Well, thank you for stopping in today to talk to us about how to actually set yourself up for success from the beginning, ways to make sure that patient is the center of your experience and allow you to really grow your practice the right way. So I appreciate the time today and all the insight.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. I'm happy to do it anytime.
Thank you again, Dr. Goodman. If there's one thing to take away from today's conversation, it's this. Patients aren't just evaluating your care anymore. They're evaluating the entire experience they have in your office. In a world where people have more options, more information, and less patience than ever before, the chiropractor who wins isn't just the best adjuster. They're actually the best communicators, the best listeners, and the ones who create an experience patients don't question. They trust it. Because at the end of the day, people often forget what you said. They might not even fully understand what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel in your office. And for everyone listening, this isn't about changing everything overnight. It's about changing one moment, one interaction, and one person's experience at a time. We'll see you next time on Chiropractical. If you found today's episode at all helpful, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a colleague. It'd be great if you could leave us a review as well, as it'll help more chiropractors find us here at Chiropractical. Be sure to watch the video version of this podcast on the NCMIC YouTube channel. If you have any questions for me or the show, you can always email me at jkec@ncmic.com. And thank you again for listening. I'm Jon Kec, and this has been Chiropractical.